At this point, Octavian began to break with the Senate. The latter gave fellow conspirators Marcus Brutus and Cassius proconsulships in Macedonia and Syria, respectively. The also Senate did not appropriate the funds for Octavian to pay his soldiers. In July 43, Octavian forced the issue by demanding one of the vacant consulships. The Senate refused, giving him the praetorship instead. Octavian then marched on Rome with 8 legions. Through cultivating the masses, plebs, and raising a veteran-based army, as well as through the support of military friends, such as Marcus Vipsanius Agrippa and Gaius Maecenas, he was able to engineer his election as consul. At this point, Lepidus declared for Antony, and senatorial control of the western provinces collapsed. Octavian then rescinded the amnesty for Caesar's murderers, and hastened to attempt an agreement with Antony and Lepidus. The three met in Bononia, near Barcelona, and negotiated the Second Triumvirate. Later written into law at Rome through the tribune Titius, it was a 3-man dictatorship able to pass laws, appoint all higher magistrates, conscript limitless numbers of soldiers, tax the populace, and prosecute military actions. This Lex Titia has been called the definitive end of the Roman Republic. The triumvirs then launched the proscriptions against the anti-faction camp. 300 senators and 2,000 equites were massacred judicially, including Cicero. Their properties were confiscated to pay off soldiers and factio supporters. The next challenge for the Second Triumvirate were Cassius and Brutus. By 43, the two had taken over all of Asia Minor, as well as other eastern provinces, and had gotten the allegiances of lesser potentates, such as Cleopatra, and were moving into Macedonia. Antony and Octavian combined forces and met their opponents at Philippi. In the first battle, Octavian was initially bested by Brutus, but Antony's troop defeated Cassius, who then committed suicide. 2 weeks later, the factio ended all hopes of the conspirators by defeating Brutus, who took his own life as well. The victors went on to divide Roman lands between them. Earlier, Lepidus and Marcus Antony had received most of Gaul and Spain, while Octavian was awarded Italian islands in Africa, with Italy being shared. After Philippi, however, Antony seemed ascendant. He received most regions, while Lepidus was about of favor. To Octavian fell the duty of settling about 100,000 soldiers of the conspirators. Disbanded legions in Italy and southern Gaul, while Mark Antony went off to discover glory in the east by fighting Parthia. In settling his troops during 42 to 41, Octavian incurred the displeasure of Italian aristocrats whose lands were taken. Marcus Antony's brother Lucius Antonius, as well as Mark's wife Fulvia, galvanized armed opposition to Octavian, with Mark's support. Octavian and his colleague Agrippa defeated them at Perugia, with the aid of troops from Gaul, who saw him as Caesar's heir in de facto terms. Octavian had thus taken control of the western Roman regions. At this point, 40 BCE, Antony returned from desultory and costly wars in the east. Octavian's commander at Brundisium refused him entry into Italy. At this point, Octavian's ally, Gaius Maecenas, interceded to produce a new triumviral understanding. Antony kept control of eastern provinces, while ceding Spain, Gaul, and Illyricum to Octavian. Lepidus received Africa. The deal was sealed when Octavian's sister, Octavia, married Mark Antony. Shortly after, a problem emerged in Italy. Sextus Pompey controlled Sicily, Corsica, and Sardinia, with a small republican army and a fleet. He acted as a pirate, disrupting trade and communication for the populations of the mainland. In 39, he stepped up his campaign, at which time Octavian decided to destroy him. He had no fleet though, and received one from Mark Antony on condition that he subsequently transfer 4 of his legions to the east. Under Agrippa's command, Octavian's forces finally defeated Sextus at Naulochus. His 23 legions surrendered to Lepidus, who then requested Octavian's evacuation of the area. Octavian refused, whereupon Sextus' old forces transferred their allegiance to Octavian, out of war weariness. At this point, Octavian had the most forces and least liabilities of the 3 triumvirate members. Lepidus retired peacefully. For the next 5 years, 38 to 33, Octavian remained mostly in the west, as the restorer of peace to the Roman world. Mark Antony was still off in the east campaigning. These eastern campaigns proved Marcus Antony's undoing, as they distracted him from Italy, weakened his forces, and made him ultimately appear a political and cultural turncoat. This was at the same time that Octavian was acting as the restorer of Rome, fighting Italian and southern Gaul brigands, engaging in urban renovation programs, etc. A major spoiler here was Cleopatra, the erstwhile lover of Caesar. After his death, she had returned to Egypt and assumed the crown. When Marcus Antony was in the East in 40, he had called on her to explain her actions. They had become lovers and she bore him 2 children. Shortly thereafter, the Parthians invaded Syria, advancing through Asia Minor, as well as into Judea. Parthenai invasions also began in Macedonia. These Antony drove back, and after Naulochus, he returned east, inviting Cleopatra to stay with him and repudiating Octavian's sister. He drove the Parthians out of the eastern territories, rearranged Asia Minor's provinces, and installed Herod as Judea's king. In 36, he undertook an offensive against the Parthians. At Phraspia he sustained initial victories, but his Armenian auxiliaries deserted, and the Parthians attacked his siege and baggage train, which Antony lost, along with 20,000 soldiers. A retreat was necessary. The defeat was a big blow. Antony was politically and financially weakened, with a depleted military. He also became more financially and emotionally dependent on Cleopatra, who had borne him a 3rd son. In the donations of Alexandria, he named this son, Ptolemy Caesar, as the heir to Caesar's position. War between Octavian and Marcus Antony was now imminent.